Hey guys, welcome to the Markcast. Reed here. Happy Monday, coming off of UFL Week 8. A big episode last week talking expansion and everything else. Got a lot of new subscribers. So if you're checking out one of these for the first time, we're standing by. The Professor Andrew Murray is coming home from work. Give him a few minutes to get logged on here. So if you have any questions, comments, help me out here. Fill a little time until we get Andy on. I got some news and notes, and then we can talk attendance and everything while we get Andy on. Playoff matchups are set. Foosball fan, we'll talk about that as well. Big show coming up on Friday, getting that all set up as well. Excited to tell you guys about all that. Jenna checking in as well. Good evening, Southern California. Appreciate that. Mariners here at Yankee Stadium taking on the Yankees down currently 2-0. So thoughts and prayers there as we get set for that. I know Paul is former co-host Paul watching as well and giving me crap via text. So it should be fun. But appreciate everyone. If you, like I said, new subscriber, checking this out, like 40% of the people that check out these streams aren't subscribed, which is baffling to me. We're trying to get to 3,500 subscribers before the UFL championship game, which is taking place in St. Louis. If you get us up there to 3,500, you can give away 2 free tickets. So you can sit with the Professor Andrew Murray if you would like as well, if that incentivizes you, if that doesn't. But like and subscribe. I think we're like 13 away from getting there. We did a big drive campaign, 12 away, big drive campaign here, getting up with our big expansion talk with John Lewis Sports last week. So appreciate that. But yeah, if you're checking this out, like and subscribe. But if you don't want to, even if you don't want to go to the game, if you're not interested in that, it would be very much appreciated for all of that. Previewing the show here coming up Friday, a big show. We are going to have Emery Hunt joining us. Playoff picture set could be a little sleepy here the last 2 weeks of the UFL season. So we are going to have Emery Hunt this coming up this Friday to preview the UFL playoffs and kind of potential championship, get Emery's thoughts on the season and all of that. We had Emery on for the pregame show here before the kickoff. Haven't had Emery on since, so really excited to hear from Emery, kind of get his thoughts, and then we'll do a big deep dive. I made my own playoff bracket because that's not even out yet for the UFL, so graphic design is my passion. Spent a lot of time this morning putting that all together, so that should be fun. And then CFL preseason kicked off today. We had Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, I think. Here I had it on for a few minutes. CFL Plus running around. Gonna have Ted Wyman coming up on the show. We're recording, talking Blue Bombers, and then trying to get a couple other CFL guests on this week as we are getting on to that. So if you are excited for the CFL coverage as well, like and subscribe. So we'll have that along with Emery for the Friday show. One other thing to note, Foosball is talking about this. We are added a couple more members here. $1 a month, subscribe, help support the channel. Super appreciate that. I think it's 99 cents, and I think I get a quarter of that or whatever YouTube deems, but makes me feel good, makes the analytics feel good, and certainly set for all of that. So you hit the join button there, get subscribed. That's great. That's free. That doesn't cost you anything. Get us up to the 3,500. That just looks good for the numbers. But if you want to support, give $1 a month. That would be awesome as well. Let's check out the comments here. Like I said, Andy coming home, and then we'll talk attendance here if we need to before Andy's going to break down. I watched a lot of the games yesterday, kind of deep dive on all of that. I had a wedding Saturday, so a little bit more checking in and out. Abdul, I'll get to your comment here in a second. I did see Mark's video. Jacob here, the league must be ecstatic that St. Louis made it to the playoffs. I know. Mike Mitchell pointing out that the St. Louis Battlehawks did not make it last year because of a playoff, technicality tiebreaker. And I said, no, they should have beaten the Sea Dragons at home. And I think it was week 8 or 9, would have gotten their way into the playoffs. But the Sea Dragons got there and said I was at Audi Field for all of that. But yes, definitely a dream for the St. Louis in the championship game. That would be we'll see. I'm a big Brahmas fan, but I don't know if they have enough kind of skin to get through the Battlehawks. But we'll see. I think that would be very competitive, probably a little bit more competitive than the Birmingham Memphis Showboats, Memphis. I always do that. The Michigan Panthers playoffs here. We'll talk attendance and stuff with all of that. But I think the XFL championship game might be a little bit more competitive. But we'll get your thoughts. Let me know kind of in the comments too. Which playoff game are you more excited for? I mean, I think Stallions are just on top of the world right now. So I certainly see them kind of rushing through. Yeah, Jacob here. The league is probably salivating at the idea of St. Louis in the championship game. I can't imagine, and that's really all the announcers talk about. it more. I noticed that here, obviously with DC, beer snake, and then for the Battlehawks games, it's like, oh my God, did you know there used to be an NFL team here, and they don't have an NFL team, and like they have so many people here, and look at all the people, like it's great. But I think it will be good. Yeah, I think the St. Louis Birmingham championship game certainly wouldn't be the Renegades this year. But yes, I think that will be the most. Speaking of the Renegades, I will be in attendance here Saturday. I will be at the Arlington Renegades hosting the Battlehawks. Had hoped when I had purchased those tickets that the Renegade season would have been a little bit more competitive, and that game would have had a little bit more meaning. But we will be there. Dorothy and I flying into Dallas, Arlington area, going to the In Flames concert at the House of Blues on Sunday night. But I said, man, if we fly in a day early, we can go see the Renegades play. So I'll be there as a fan, walking around, eating and drinking and all of that stuff, because I'll be there with my wife. So I don't know if the Renegades will even have. I'll give you the accurate attendance report, though. You count on that. I'll be the man on the street giving the accurate attendance reports and letting you know how many people at the Renegades game. But excited for that. Excited to kind of see the Battlehawks in person. Oh, Dorothy's checking in here. Dorothy's at school. Yeah, Dorothy. I don't know if she's more excited for the Arlington Renegades, the UFL game, or with the 1-7 Renegades, or the In Flames concert. But one way or another, we'll do all that. What was it? Florio going to the. I don't know. I think Florio, I think he just likes that clickbait. Like, I've tried to get him on because like he's super good at responding to emails. Like, I've had back and forths in depth with Mike Florio about like, hey, would love to get your thoughts. We'd love to have you come on. It's like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. Like, I understand, and obviously doing the podcast and his website and everything, but really likes to do it as long as he can get the clicks for it. But we'll see. I mean, if he's there, I'll be in the press box. Maybe Florio will be in the press box. So could be excited for that. Really glad my neighbors decided to mow their lawn right now. They have never outside, but super glad we'll do all that. Yeah, Jenna, hopefully a decent crowd. Like I said, I'll be MOS there. I'll be the man on the street, getting and Anthony Miller was going to see him, but he'll be out of town. The one weekend I'm going to be back in there. We'll do it. We won't be able to see that, but let's see what other comments here. Mike G, we're talking the USFL championship game, the playoff game. Michigan picking it up. They'll give it back this out. Yeah, it'll be good. I think the next 2 weeks are going to be a little sleepy, but then I think both playoff games, as compared to last year when it was the USFL, what was it, like the Maulers and the Stallions, whatever that, like some of these playoff games got a little sleepy for that. So I think at least the conference playoff games will be excited for that. Let's see here. Roughnecks had the Stallions sweating this past week. And yeah, Philip giving some good comments on our YouTube video this week, talking about expansion and relocation. If you haven't had a chance to check that out with John Lewis Sports, certainly go check that out. Got a lot of views. It's amazing how, putting expansion in the title really brings out all the boys to the yard here. But yes, Dorothy, excited to swim and drink margaritas. Appreciate that. Yeah, we'll be having fun. And yeah, I did see Brady. I wish they would have promoted that more. I saw that on social media. That's a good look for the league, right? Tom's going to be doing the main Fox broadcasting and all of that. Well, I'm curious, right? He's like with the Browns. It's the Browns, whatever, that first week. Should be excited for that. I see the professor logging in here. I'll just do a couple more comments here. Zach saying hi to Lady Marcus. Yeah, Dorothy. We'll do a X video or a Twitter video. We'll post something. But yeah, if you're in the Dallas Fort Worth area, come to the game here. Andy, my neighbors decided to mow and blow and edge their lawns in the world here. I don't know how loud it is, but how are you doing, sir? How the heck are you?
I'm great. Just, fighting traffic as I always do.
Well, we appreciate it. Denzel checking in here. What up, Markcast? Yeah, Andy, we're I think we're 12 subscribers away from getting to the 3,500. We can give away those 2 tickets. And I said that they can either sit with you or not, because it might incentivize, it might not. I don't know.
Based on how this season's viewership is going and some of the commentary we've gotten, I'm going to say that people are maybe less inclined to sit with me. But you know what? That's their jurisdiction. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, I tell you, we got a lot of flack last week talking. It was like he praised at Birmingham the entire time, and then like the first comment I get off, and it's like, you guys, like, how do you hate on Birmingham? Like, I'm unsubscribing, which is totally fine. I mean, it's totally fine. You do what you need. Like, we just talked how great Birmingham was for like 40 minutes. Like, I don't understand. Like, it's not a reflection on you. Like, I don't. like internalized Seattle. Like people don't like Seattle. I don't like, oh, they don't like the liberal Seattle, whatever. Like I'm taking that, but like people in Birmingham really attached to that.
I mean, I have this thing that my parents talked to me about when I was growing up. It's called selective hearing. And I do think there's a little bit of that goes around. But you know what? Everybody does that. Everybody has things they want to hear and other things they don't want to. So that's up to them.
So we'll get into all this here, Andy. Like I said, we got Emery Hunt coming up this Friday. We got Ted Wyman coming on. We'll do some CFL stuff as well. Should be exciting. Get a couple more CFL guests. Playoff previews here. General thoughts coming out of the weekend. I'll get let's do attendance first, kind of as we normally do. But general thoughts on the weekend, because it was. Some competitive, some not. I'm kind of trying to remember which game, the games I saw at this point.
Well, the playoff picture is set. That's really the biggest takeaway from this weekend. Everything is set. Everything is decided as far as who's in the playoff picture. Now, who's hosting? We still don't know that yet. For me, I think it was finally the nail in the coffin for a lot of these teams, DC being one of them, obviously. They finally just couldn't hold water against the Battlehawks, even without someone like Adrian McCarron. San Antonio takes care of business. There goes DC. Your champion from the East Division last year, a 9-1 team that had all the aspirations of winning an XFL championship game, being dashed by first Arlington in the championship game and now the follow-up year where things just didn't go their way. Bad injuries, the same cast not being there, the same semblance of attack on offense not being there, a lot of defensive miscues, just it didn't work out. So for me, a lot of changeover. I think in the XFL, you're seeing a lot of change. The USFL is kind of standard. I mean, it's stand pat. It's kind of like what do you expect? Birmingham is rolling along. Michigan is continuing the momentum they had last year. Obviously, you don't have the breakers that exist. They're not there to sort of be in the playoff picture again. Same thing with your Dragons. Sorry, they're not there to sort of be part of the picture. So part of it is the picture was going to change this year. You just wondered who exactly it was that was maybe going to drop out of it, of the returning teams. And Arlington and DC are just by the wayside. They're gone. And obviously the Roughnecks are gone. So the XFL and USFL pictures have changed pretty significantly here.
Just respond to a couple of comments here. No, that's my question. Biggest disappointment. I mean, we've talked Renegades ad nauseum here for weeks. I mean, DC here has got to be, especially just with how passionate, it'd be like if the Battlehawks stunk, right? I mean, you want your hot markets to do well. And I really thought that disappointing overall for DC, even though I think, Tiamu looking better this weekend, but just clearly not enough. And Battlehawks defense really good as well.
I think my takeaway, I finally made my determination on how I feel about Ta'amu overall. I think he's the quintessential spring football quarterback. You know what you're going to get from him. You know what he's going to do well, the things he's not going to do well. I think ultimately you have to have a team around him in order to be successful. When he was younger, when he was in the XFL in 2020 with the Battlehawks, they had to do more to supplement his game because he just didn't have the acumen as a passer yet. He's developed a lot as a passer. He makes some really good downfield throws. To be honest, I thought he played well enough, especially in that fourth quarter, to win that game. He really did. He made some outstanding throws. But what got him in the end? Their offensive line broke down. Protections broke down. Again, just pressure in his face, which he's gotten all year. They can't run the ball consistently. They don't have as many weapons as they did last year. You need to surround him with talent. So for me, I'm starting to see what the limitations on some of these guys are, right? Luis Perez has not had a bad year. Luis Perez is leading the league in passing. He's having a very good year statistically. It's just everything around him is not working. You need somebody, if you're going to have somebody that's really going to elevate your team, you're going to need somebody like Adrian Martinez. Like, that's just going to be the fact of the matter. And the Stallions have had that the last 2 years. Magoo and Martinez were both outstanding and elevated the level of play around them. But some of these guys, it's no fault of their own because I think you understand what they have. They need to have support around them. And Perez and Tom just didn't get that this year.
All right, so let's get to attendance here, and then we'll do kind of the game by game. It's like, what time is it? 5:15. I get all because I just start rambling here at the beginning of the show, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So let's talk through all this. Week 8 coming out here. Michigan, second highest attendance since week 1. That is good, right? I mean, John Lewis and all that took a lot of shots kind of at Michigan, on Friday's episode. Good to see that support with that, especially, and I tweeted that, especially with their team it's a long shot to think that they're hosting. And I didn't even know, Mike was posting in the group chat that even if, and I don't think it will happen, but even if the Panthers were to be the home field team for the playoffs, there's like a commencement, whatever, and they couldn't host anyway, which is why I don't know. Did they post that news? Did I miss out on that news?
I missed out on it too, but maybe that's something that Mike was able to get a hold of and I wasn't.
Yeah, so I have no idea. But Mike had said that today that there's a commencement or something at Ford Field. So they would be the home team in Protective Stadium, which if we know what Birmingham looks like as a home team in Protective Stadium, I don't know what. But again, I don't think that's. I mean, that would. A lot of things that have to happen here, but really weird that way. Anyway, so good to see that. Birmingham here coming down from 14 right last week with the Battlehawks, kind of the bump that I had with AJ McCarron and all of that. St. Louis holding strong, and that was opposite the Cardinals game as well, same time. And people said they had 39,000 people. San Antonio holding in there. I think if they were a better venue, it's just the Alamo Dome. And I watched that game. It's just the hardest. It's in the same with Ford Field. It's just such a hard venue to watch. You could have 11,000 there. It still looks like nobody's in there.
You know, the Alamo Dome, I actually really like the venue. Maybe it's just the fact that there's nothing specifically immediately surrounding it. Maybe that plays into it, but it's a short walk from the San Antonio Riverwalk. It's not that far away. So for me, maybe, I mean, it doesn't look as great on TV when it's cavernous like that. Obviously, we've seen it more filled up and it looks great. I think it's still a great venue. It's just you have to get the people in there. I think the same thing would happen with, the Edward Jones Dome, or the Dome as they call it now, with St. Louis. I mean, it would look the same way on TV if it was not as filled up. And obviously, it is getting filled up most of the time, so it's not a problem. For me, I mean, Michigan, it's good that they've rebounded a little bit here. Maybe the Michiganders are starting to realize they have another playoff team on the gridiron. They've been spoiled with the Detroit Lions and the Michigan Wolverines, and now finally they have another playoff team that's pretty decent, and you can go watch that team. You obviously want that number to be baseline, like 10,000, but at least they're starting to rebound a little bit. They still have another chance to get people in there. So for them, I don't foresee them hosting the championship game. Obviously, that's going to be really interesting. So that's something they have to kind of look forward to. Birmingham. Let's talk about Birmingham for a second. And I know we talk about Birmingham every single week. You, my friend, got into it with some people. Apparently, weather was the great debacle of the weekend for the Birminghamers, which is interesting to me because I think their primary argument, if I'm not mistaken, was that there was rain 2 hours before the game, and that scared everybody.
Yeah, it really looked like it was going to rain. It really looked like it was going to rain. But then all I hear about is walk-up traffic. And I'm like, okay, well, but then because you always see the seating charts. Like, no, but you got to wait for the walk-ups. I'm like, I can't. And that's why I finally tweeted. I was like, "Oh, there must have been in the state sale 2 counties." I'm like, there's always an excuse. There's always an excuse. Like you said, we had a comment here. San Antonio outdrew Birmingham, and I know, because then it's the city size, and then it's the population. You got people from all over Alabama going everywhere for this college stuff, but then it's not. Then it's only metro size when it's related to there's always an excuse.
I gotta say, Reed, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I found coherent conversation about this topic in actually the comment section in your video with John Lewis about the expansion. I actually think they had some good points in that conversation. There were people who were saying, like, look, Birmingham has been burned numerous times as a spring football outfit, and maybe people are just tired of this, and they don't want to invest until they see long-term investment. Because there's been plenty of other events in Protective Stadium that have sold out and been fine. And you know what? That's a fair point. That's the most fair point I've heard about this the entire time. None of this excuses about weather or parking or there's a concert going on. None of that. None. This was a finally legitimate point that I can side with. And I say, yes, I think that makes sense. When there's burnout and there's people that don't believe in the product because it doesn't stick around for that long, that's legitimate. And that's fine. I'm okay with that.
3 years now. It's in 3 years. I think it's more burnout than it has been
3 years. Right.
I think it's more burnout than it is 3 years of they need to see more. I don't know.
Maybe. And again, I think I really stress this. I think the USFL side could have done a much better job of putting that out there and really stressing, like, hey, the Birmingham Stallions are back. They are back. And they are wildly successful. I cannot believe they're not trumpeting that more often. I know the Stallion fans do, the home the numerous Stallion fans that I see online trumpet that, but clearly the people of Birmingham don't seem to know that because they should. They should. They should go watch this team. I would watch that team every week if I could. I would if I could. I think seeing someone like Adrian Martinez in person would be awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing him in person because, sorry, Michigan fans, I really believe they're going to be in the championship game in a month from now. I really look forward to seeing that. And so that's a whole thing of, can you get that message out? And I still think the league doesn't do enough good job of that. But I finally think there was some discourse on the topic that I actually sided with, or at least coherently combated with, instead of hearing all the other excuses that we've heard over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I just
in the last 3 years, really.
Oh, sorry. Are we synced up? I think one of our internets was lagging there. I think we're synced back up again now. I said you have a new nickname here. I agree with Dr. Abraham Miller. I don't know who that
is. How many different names am I going to get this season?
Yeah, well, so we have Anthony Miller, who is not a doctor, and then we have the Professor Andrew Murray, who is here, also known as Andy Murray.
Abraham Miller. Oh my God. I can't be Andrew or Andy anymore. I've lost that name too many times. I might have to legally certify my name to be something else. I clearly am not, like, there must be some celestial force that doesn't let me have that name anymore.
That's what my last we'll do just hear a little bit more about attendance and we'll move on here. I have some comments to go through, but that was someone in the comments as well was like, yeah, I live in Birmingham, I'm from here, like they don't even have any marketing around there, which is crazy. Like, again, it's the same thing with the Choctaw thing we talked about. I mean, I would just have this huge sign on the side of Choctaw Stadium, like, football is played here every other weekend. Like, I don't understand. And I know now we're getting to it. And like I said, I'll be at the game here this weekend. Like, I bought the tickets before obviously we knew that the Renegades were going to be terrible, but like, I don't understand, because they're doing this paid attendance. Like, if you've already bought your season tickets, like, and then you're just not going to the game, I don't understand that either. Like, we still went to the Kraken games at the end, and they were like, we weren't in contention. Like, you've already spent the money. Like, why not? Is the $10 parking outside of Choctaw? Like, that, like, it's really crazy. Like, I don't know. That's the other thing I get with that. Anything else? We'll do some comments and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, like, we get those paid attendance numbers and maybe there's just apathy because the team's not as good as you thought it was. And, let's be fair. That happened at Audi Field this year too. Like, that happened in the last game. There weren't nearly as many people as it looked like on paid attendance number versus the people on TV. I'll admit that. Like, maybe people are starting to really feel fatigued by this, but also we do need to talk about the calendar situation, because, I mean, now we're past the point where it was last year with the XFL championship game. The USFL, there weren't that many people really to begin with at the attendances, and obviously their season went later anyways. Now we're starting to see that effect, and I think that is a legitimate thing that needs to be talked about when we're talking about the calendar going forwards, because, yeah, it's true, people are starting to do other things. I mean, this weekend I started to realize, like, there's graduations going on, right? There's graduations for colleges that are going on. You're going to start getting graduations for other schools. People are going to be out of school, and then they're going to be like, I'm traveling, see you later. Like, people are going to start going on vacation. I'm not sure if that's the case for your wife Dorothy at all anytime soon, but, like, that's the reality of, like, I mean, I've seen comments about people saying, like, look, I really just don't have time now. I can't do it anymore. Life is getting really complicated at this very moment because it's spring and the weather's getting better, but not to paint an excuse here, but that is starting to become a factor for the like, maybe the more casual viewers, let's say that, not the nutheads like us who are still following this, like, religiously.
No, it's 100% here. We have a Carmine. I'll get to your comment here. I decide this is good as well. I'll star these. Calendar is a huge issue, and that was the big issue with the USFL as well. That they, it gets May, June, and people are, it's hot. People are going out, and then you get then it's too hot at the stadium, and the people don't want to go to the stadium because it's too hot. And then you have others like, yeah, I've had events every weekend. We're out of town next weekend, and then I have an event every Saturday through the June 29th. Will be the first Saturday that I don't have, so obviously that's past the championship game at that point. But, like, I would have had an event the championship weekend, and then they cancel. It was a wedding and they cancel. But, like, that you get into that thing, and like you said, and there's baby showers and there's bridal showers and there's engagement things and there's all this kind of stuff and there's graduations and there's, like, barbecue, and it's just you fight a lot of that as well, where it's really hard to get my wife to sit at home on, like, a cold Saturday, or we go to the bar and watch than it is. The hotter it gets, it's really tough. And I think if we do these Friday games next year, I think that's great. You do the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, start after the Super Bowl, or even go the week before the Super Bowl. Do that, Pro Bowl weekend, whatever, and then hop. I know but I think there's finagling that can do the rolling by with March Madness, but I think that February kickoff is 1,000% what makes sense.
I still really believe in the rolling by. I do. I talked to that actually with our colleague Evan a couple days ago, and I think I really believe in that idea. I do wonder now. The thing is about when the championship game would happen. That I've started to think about that because I was looking at the calendar, and I think it's funny that last year the XFL championship game happened the day after or the day before Mother's Day. That was the case. This year it's happening on Father's Day. And then the USFL championship game obviously had the whole thing about being July 4th weekend. I'm not sure if it behooves the UFL to be around holiday weekends, because I don't think that's what people prioritize. I mean, look at Memorial Day weekend. You could say, now logistically, you could be like, well, that gives them another travel day to go. I'm like, I don't know if people are prioritizing that as part of their travel schedule. Let's just be fair here. I don't think that's really the case. So people don't want to miss these important holidays. What you should do is try to end the season on maybe a non-significant weekend, some day where it's not part of a holiday weekend, and you can get people involved in it that way. I do think if you can I still think starting the week after the Super Bowl is important. Would I love to have meaningful football games during Pro Bowl weekend? Yes. But do I think you should sandwich that with Super Bowl? I have to think about that. But after the Super Bowl, I think that's a little bit more amicable. But I believe in the bye week, which would allow you to maybe miss that Mother's Day weekend, or at least Mother's Day weekend would be like the championship games, for example. And then the actual championship game would be the week after that. There's your season. I think that would be true, authentic spring football. Then people are going to go out and do stuff. And also think about this past weekend, and we'll see what happens with the TV ratings tomorrow. I mean, there was 2 Game 7s by the NBA in one day, and then there's NHL Game 6s, and then another NBA Game 6. Like, you start battling that crowd too, and those are significant games. Those are games that people are going to start prioritizing because they're like, oh, the series is really ramped up, and this is like do or die right now. That's part of the reality. I know you're trying to say that's not a relevant audience, but it is. It's the sporting viewing audience. So I think trying to get around that is also important too.
Well, and like you said, with the Mother's Day, Father's Day this year, Easter weekend, right? And then the USFL 2 years ago with the later start, it was Easter weekend too, right? And I know because the schedules have changed and Easter bumps around and you can't always count on that, but it was both Easter Saturdays. And I'm like, obviously we're not like a super religious. Oh, sorry, that we're gonna go prioritize that, but it's still a thing. A couple comments here, and then we'll get to the game standings and all of that stuff. Carmine here, start last week in February, finish by mid-May. Jose here, and we've talked about this. I think the teams need to practice in their home market so they can do more community events to build. I know then you walk the balance of like, well, if we're putting them up for 2 nights in the towns, and then we still travel, like there's still going to be like the kind of the sweet spot. But I do agree. I think they've started flying in like the day before. I know what was it? The Brahmas were going to fly in the day before, and then they were having like metro issues that Kerwin, their PR guy, had sent out that they got caught. So I mean, then you're running into those issues as well. Philip here says the league must show some stability with cities. If they keep fans moving, they won't trust them to stay. It's kind of going back to the relocation and all of that. And then let's see here. And then Denzel was saying here, I wish Birmingham would sell more than one side of the field. I think they would if they could. I don't think it's an issue of wanting that. Abdul Forfield is hosting St. Francis Cabrini Festival. There you go. I assumed it was like a graduation. We do graduations here. And then last thing, CW, buy my championship game tickets tomorrow, or just get us to 3,500. Get 10 more friends of yours. Get us to 3,500, and you could win them yourself here. I think we've added a couple more on here. 11 to go. The push. I guess if Andy, like 40% of people, I'm like, are you hate watching? Like, are you watching out of spite? Like, give us to that. All right, so let's go to standings here real quick. We'll kind of get a picture of this. This all solidified here. Battlehawks, Brahmas, like we talked about the top, Stallions and Panthers on that. Kind of any general thoughts as you look at how I assume there's not going to be, a lot of movement here moving forward, but thoughts on kind of how this all wound out.
I mean, razor thin margin right there between the Battlehawks and Brahmas. I think if you're the Battlehawks, you are thanking your lucky stars you won on Sunday. Now, I think it looks very favorable to them going forward, especially with that head-to-head coming up on week 10. That's really the biggest. That's could be a gargantuan matchup. But we'll see if maybe one team, if the Battlehawks win and the Brahmas lose, then you kind of maybe settle that out. Stallions, again, I don't see them dropping into these last two games. I think they're going to win. Now, the key is do they try to run the table? And how long do they keep playing Adrian Martinez? Because that's really their biggest thing is health. At this point, that's all it is. It's health. And same thing with the Battlehawks in a way. I know obviously Adrian McCarron wasn't there last Sunday. They were able to win with Manny Wilkins, but they're kind of managing him too. You got to be careful about that as well. The top two teams are worried about their health. Brahmas, I mean, you did your job. Honestly, you did your job with flying colors. You improved tremendously. You have twice the number of wins you had last year. Coaching staff did their thing. You survived. Garber's getting injured. You survived Dormity's up and down play. You were able to really manage your way through this. And I think that's a tremendous credit to them and the turnaround that team has had. And Michigan, I got to give credit to Michigan. Really good team on the ground. Defensive identity still there, even with Frank Gindan on there. Not as solid as they were before his injury, but I still think they have a lot going on. And I'm really, I am impressed that Michigan is a solid team, a really good, solid team now. And so, I mean, for me, as far as the bottom teams go, the Showboats, man, what an operation. Keys Cook is playing with. Basically, I don't know. I don't think he had broken ribs. I'm not sure if he did. He had a chest injury. I'm not sure if you heard at one point, but in the audio, he said, "I'm having trouble breathing, but I think I'm going to be okay." Like,
no, he's crazy,
my guy.
Man.
Just like sit down for a minute. I'm really worried about his long-term health. He just cannot keep taking these beatings. I really believe that. Roughnecks. Like I said, Curtis Johnson, his tombstone is being erected as we speak right now. I mean, in terms of his head coaching tenure with the Houston Roughnecks, I'm sorry, but he's going to go back to being a wide receivers coach here pretty soon.
Keep just to jump in for you? Would you keep? I would keep Flip and get rid of Curtis next year. What would you do that?
I think that's going to be the play. And I think DiFilippo's coaching is not the problem.
Yeah.
Again, I said it last week. It's the roster. The roster has a lot of holes. David Davis is great. Fantastic. Second leading receiver. He's been great. You have some interesting pieces on that team, but they just cohesively cannot get it together. I think you keep DiFilippo around, and I think they had the premonition of keeping him around, especially after moving him from the New Orleans franchise. I don't think they want to pull one over on him. Honestly, I see 3 out of the 8 coaches we're talking about here moving on. As we talked, I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, but just to recap, I do think it's Curtis Johnson. I do think Bob Stoops walks away from the Renegades. And I do think actually the Brahmas staff is going to change not because of the lack of success. I think because of the monetary cuts that are coming. What is interesting though, I do wonder if you have someone like AJ Smith, does he get a head coaching job? And does he get a head coaching job in the league? Does he get promised a franchise? Do you keep him around in a way? So maybe just reshuffle some players around there. I wonder if that's part of the process too. But as far as everything goes, I mean, it's pretty much non-competitive the next 2 weeks. The only thing that you're really worried about now is seeding, and really the biggest question mark is the XFL conference.
I love AJ Smith, right? And friend of the show, he's been on. I like sometimes, and I'm not the football guy, but like they were trying to. It was the game this weekend, and they were trying to get into like field goal range, and he ended up doing like a short run. Like sometimes to me, it feels like his play calling doesn't fit the situation or hasn't always been. It just feels like there's been a lot of question marks from the announcers. Like I'm watching because there's like, oh, I think we're going to do this. AJ does the complete opposite. And then they're like, well, it just feels like AJ hasn't, I don't know if it's the quarterback injuries and all that. It just feels like he hasn't had it all clicking this year like he did last year.
Well, even last year, I thought there were times that it didn't work out. Now I know there was also injuries at the quarterback position, which didn't help. I think, some of it may be situational awareness. I think AJ is trying to always put up points, and he should, but sometimes there needs to be other management parts to this where, look, we don't need to be so aggressive here. Let's try and reimagine what we're trying to do on this drive. Let's just get a field goal and let's continue with that. I do think part of it is scheme, and part of it is maybe the players he doesn't want to have are in the scheme. I mean, Garbers would be obviously perfect to have in the situation. Dormity played well enough, although I do think a lot of it was run after catch. Anthony McFarland was fantastic, for example. He did a lot of work. for Dormady, and Dormady had a much chiller game than he did against the Roughnecks. I do think some of it is scheme fit. I mean, AJ's still young; he's still figuring this out, and I think smart defensive minds can figure out what he's doing a little bit, and it can stymie the offense. I think the thing about the Brahmas is they're such have-oriented offenses that go on with them. It's like sometimes they look great for the first half, second half they kind of peter out. Other times they've started off really slow in the first half and they figure out in the second half of the fourth quarter. So, if I just want to see them kind of piece a whole game together and really have a solid performance from front to back, and that kind of what makes me hesitate to pick them in a situation against a team like the Battlehawks. But I do think they do have some of the right pieces, but other times I wonder if they have the right personnel to execute his vision on offense.
Interesting. All right, so let's get to the games here. Let's switch over to this, and then we can go deep dive if we want to do this stuff. I guess let's talk about that because we're at Brahmas here. We'll just kind of go reverse on this. Brahmas taking care of the business against Arlington. You know, I mean, right? I'm looking at the dates correct. Yeah, I get all screwed up on this. What's like? At the end of that back, wasn't the Battlehawks game? No, the Brahmas game was last. That's like I was watching. I sat on my deck and played Super Mario World on my Vision Pro and had the football game on. It was really kind of cool all afternoon. Jordan, when you get a pedicure, I said, "Oh my god! Like I get a weekend day at home. I'm not working. I'm gonna watch this game." But anyway, so what did you make of this Brahmas and Renegades?
Again, the Brahmas did enough in the first half and kind of cruised after having I believe it was a 20-3 lead at one point. Yeah, so they basically were able to continue cruising from the way that they had this game going. But for me, again, it's just Arlington's inability to really get anything done. I mean, Perez was making some fantastic throws that just weren't connecting with someone like the likes of Javonte Payton, who I think could have had a really big year. Just didn't end up panning out that way. Again, more defensive mishaps with not being able to tackle someone like McFarland, who was running all up and down the field. Still a lot of inconsistencies on their special teams, especially coverage. Just kind of a lot of sloppy play from the Renegades, and they never really felt like they had a chance in this game. I know they kind of came back late, and if they'd been able to get the onside, it would have been fine. But it's kind of, to me, it's just the same continuing comedy of errors here. And for the Brahmas, I mean, they got to keep leaning on John Lovett, man. He's been really good for them this season. I know he was a bit stymied in this game. I know, but they got to kind of keep him going. They got to have some sort of semblance of a run game. Dormady was much better. Like I said, he was much more consistent. Can you expect that from him week to week? I still don't think so. But for this Arlington team, it was bad luck. They've lost by so many one-score games this year. I don't think they were really in this game. I think, in my opinion, it looks closer than it actually was, but they just haven't been able to get it done this year. As far as San Antonio goes, continue to lean on your defense. I mean, you have some really good defensive players on your team that are able to keep everybody else in check on the other side. And I think that's what's kind of improved a lot for them this season too, is just their defensive consistency is also a lot better.
Yeah, I think they were saying that right, Garbers could be coming back. I know we talked about, like, would you would you immediately plug him back in, or would you ride with Dormady here? Because I mean, he's been, I don't know, nothing's really blown me away with him, but it's kind of been serviceable going on.
If Garbers is healthy, I would say yes, but let's make sure that he's healthy first. We got to make sure that he's actually able to come back in one piece. If you're able to use him in the playoffs, absolutely. You shelve him until you think he's ready for the playoffs. And if that's the case, great. Then I would just say that. Even if you lose a pivotal game that might stop you from hosting the playoff game. I mean, I know the Battlehawks are obviously a juggernaut at home in terms of home crowd advantage, but I do think there's a lot to be said about the adrenaline you can get as a road team to play in that as well. And I do think that health is ultimately the better thing for the Brahmas to look forward to if they think that Garbers has a chance to come back. If not, then you try your best to win the next two games and see if you can roll the dice enough to be able to actually host the championship game, which would be tremendous. But Garbers, again, it's really contingent. We'll see what happens these next 3 weeks.
I tell you, if the Battlehawks don't win here, and if they host and they don't win, that would be pretty remarkable.
We'll see how many. Are we going to get a huge disparity between paid attendance of the championship game and what actually
Yeah.
shows up? It's going to be half of that. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I said, the league is desperately hoping that happens. But I still think there'll be decent attendance, even if it's San Antonio and Birmingham. It's not going to be what they want, but I think there'll still be at least a decent draw out.
Anything else on this game? We can keep moving on. We'll talk more Brahmas, like I said, Emory and everything coming up for the playoffs. RIP to the Renegades. I'll be there. I mean, I'll be there this weekend. I'll see the Battlehawks in person. Maybe we'll see AJ McCarron or whatever else. Anything else on this game?
No, again, I just want to shout out the San Antonio defense. You have 3 of the 4 top tacklers in the league: Tavante Beckett, Jordan Williams, and then Jordan. Jordan Mosley, excuse me, because there's 2 Jordans on the team. I'm always mixing up their last names. Have been really excellent this year and have supplied a lot better consistency for them on defense. But I do think it's important. I'm seeing this comment below me. I don't know if 60,000 is really even achievable if the Battlehawks play in the Battle Dome, but that would be amazing. I don't know if that's going to happen. That would be that'd be a sight to behold. I mean, if you're the league, you would be doing
do backflips.
Yeah, you do triple backflips if you got that attendance. That'd be incredible. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. But again, the Brahmas have a chance to spoil this entire party.
That's me. Like I said, I mean, the Brahmas are technically my team. I had a lot of Reed hates the UFL because there's no Sea Dragons. I watched it. I live and die by the Washington Commanders, man. And that makes that's blame Taylor Heineke for all of that stuff. But it doesn't affect me. But I would be very excited to have the Brahmas play spoiler. Let's go here. Defenders, Battlehawks. We could you talked about this off the top. We mentioned defenders and all this stuff. Battlehawks taking care of business here. Pretty much solidifying here that first place. But thoughts on this one? Anything else you wanted to touch about?
Well, initially, you look at that completion percentage for Manny Wilkins, you go, oh, yikes. But you know what? He did enough, especially with his legs. I mean, his ability to break contain and really make plays with his legs was the biggest key factor here for this team. Also, Wayne Gallman did not expect this to come out of him. He had an incredible game. I really discounted him in the beginning of the season because he just looked really slow and really lethargic. Jacob Sailors was playing better than him. Mateo Durant was making better plays than him at the beginning of the season. But no, Wayne Gallman, hats off to him. He had a huge catch and run to set up the game-winning drive at the end, and he had the game-winning touchdown, obviously, there at the end. He was tremendous for them, and they really needed that because it was really sluggish in the first half. I think DC has to be a little bit disappointed. I mean, you get 2 picks from Tama, who just, again, has limitations to his game. He's had a lot of turnovers this season. I think that's kind of underplayed a little bit. I do think he had some great throws down the field that were able to be caught. They don't have Kelvin Harmon, who was their main weapon. They don't have him in this game. Ty Scott was able to come through a little bit for them. But again, just know when you don't have the run game. I mean, you think about last year, Abram Smith running for over 200 yards in the Battle Dome and it being such a thunderous performance by him and the team. They just seemed to really come play with authority. This year, I mean, they were kind of struggling. They couldn't convert fake punt conversion they were trying to make. They couldn't convert that.
Yeah.
A lot of inconsistencies on the offensive line. It just wasn't there for them. For the Battlehawks, I mean, they just wanted to survive, and they did. Defense still kind of scares me a little bit. The thing for me with the Battlehawks is they got to create turnovers. That's the only way they're really going to stop teams. I don't think they're going to stop them completely. I do think they're a little bit better than last year, but really, to me, they're a very opportunistic defense. They have to continue to create turnovers if they're going to be able to do anything against some of these offenses. And if you're talking about playing a team like, say, Birmingham, that might be what it comes down to. They're going to have to create those turnovers, which they were able to a little bit last week when they played Birmingham. Obviously, they gave up those slant routes, which really killed them. We'll see how they adjust the second time around if they end up playing them. But yeah, for the Battlehawks, you survived. That was the most important thing. And you just got to survive the next 2 weeks, unless maybe you get Adrian McCarron to come and play back. But again, they kind of have to be careful with how much they want to play him, especially with that ankle.
Yeah, what was it they said that Manny had in the first 2 quarters? I think it was the first 3 quarters had more rushing yards than AJ had the entire season, which really just speaks to kind of the difference with that. But like you said, I mean, they got through. They did what they needed to do. you don't want to give, that home field advantage to it's nothing. Like to me, it's I don't know if the Brahmas have a home field advantage. I think it's you want to make sure you're hosting it in your own yard to kind of have that. But they did enough. They got through and move on for another day, right?
Absolutely. And again, the fact that I think the biggest thing is they clinched. They're in. There's none of this voodoo math that they have to deal with. I know they lost to your Sea Dragons, and that's really the end of the story. But there was just so much weird circumstances around them missing the playoffs last year. And this year, it's just that's it. They're in the playoffs. No controversy. This is it. They're in. So I think for them, getting that monkey off their back, I think was a really big deal.
Abdul here is talking about Hakeem Butler's health alongside Case Cook, as we were talking about people really worried that he's been playing hurt the whole time. Yeah, and taking big shots, right? It seems like there's a lot. I don't know. The Battlehawks really kind of fighting through injuries right now, getting so. I'll be curious here in the next couple weeks. Like, are we resting? For a lot of these teams, a lot of the playoff teams, I don't know if we're resting players or we want to get other guys tape here in terms of the playoff picture here moving forward.
I mean, if you're the Battlehawks, you are praying that the Brahmas lose next week, you win, and then you're able to rest your guys for a week. But you can't really rest yet. Birmingham technically is still in the same realm. They can't do it yet. They have to win another game, and then they'll be safe. But they can't. Like, I'm sure they don't show anything against Michigan. Like, if they win next week, they won't show anything against Michigan at all when they play them in week 10. Say, well, you'll figure us out when you come down here for the playoffs. But for this case, the same for the Battlehawks, they kind of have to keep their foot on the gas pedal for now. It's hard to rest starters. It's not the same situation, not as much distance as you have like you do in the NFL. I mean, it's still so tight unless you absolutely crush your division, like DC obviously did last year. They were so incredibly potent in the East. It's hard to really, without that separation, it's hard to, or even like Houston, they had that separation too, and they could rest guys.
A couple comments here, and this is interesting as well with Foosball Fan. But Abdul says the issue with resting guys, talking pay difference, right? We're talking pay difference between that and like, would you rather play injured and make sure you're getting the full game check for all that? That's actually something that I kind of hadn't put 2 and 2 together. So thank you for that. And then the other thing, and this is just interesting. I'm not a big schedule watcher, but if we look on here, look at our Week 10 matchups: the Panthers versus the Brahmas, and the Stallions and the Brahmas against the Battlehawks. So we had that last year, right? With the was it the Roughnecks and the Renegades played or whatever the week before? But that could be interesting as well here, because definitely won't be a playoff preview.
I mean, in a way, that helped Arlington kind of work out the kinks, and then they were able to unleash on the Houston Roughnecks the following week, whereas the Roughnecks weren't really playing for anything. So I guess it depends on what you're trying to show and what you're not trying to show. I mean, that's a really tricky thing for the Brahmas and the Battlehawks. That could end up being a legitimately important game. It really depends on what happens next week. For the Stallions, assuming that they are going to have it wrapped up by then, I mean, you throw in Jamar Smith, you throw in Matt Corral, you kind of just throw in whoever you want. It doesn't really matter. I don't now. In my opinion, and we were wrong about this last year, I don't see the Panthers having a renegade like run here where they're suddenly going to ramp up and suddenly gain momentum going into that game. You wonder about Adrian Martinez, but Adrian Martinez didn't start the entire season. He was back and forth. He started week 3, didn't start week 4, and then he was the full-time starter week 5. So it's not like he's not taking weeks off before. Maybe you play a little bit just to make sure he doesn't get too rusty, and then you allow other guys to start playing. I would advocate for that if I were the Stallions. And then you basically have 2 games that don't matter at all. No offense, at the bottom of the schedule here. So your Saturday in week 10 really is, I mean, that could determine a lot of the playoff picture, but this is so much what if scenario here.
Yeah, because like I said, you're still dealing, and we talked about with player pay and all of that, and people want to get game tape, and there's not really like, I mean, you don't want to call them meaningless games, but there's not a lot of like, I don't know. I think the players still have a lot at stake here, even if it is a meaningless game, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, game tape, winning, paycheck, obviously, being able to show that they still have something to prove. Coaches too. I mean, coaches are also battling here. I mean, all these coaches we think are going to be a lot of them are going to be on the chopping block here at the bottom of the schedule. So they got to be careful about that too. They got to showcase themselves as well, obviously. So for the players, yeah, there's a lot to play for here. And that's ultimately the purpose of this league, right? It's guys who want to get that game tape out there. And some guys who really like this lifestyle, and other guys who are, trying to move on to other things, but you want to be able to have that to showcase.
One comment here. We'll get to the last two games. We'll get out here pretty quick. In terms of flex, I know that one of the games got flexed a little bit earlier. I got the press release about that. Let me see if I can find it. I know Jeff had sent that out, but the problem with switching days is people have already bought tickets, right? Yeah, they're changing here. I'm reading through the screen here. I'm not looking. The June 1st game is now scheduled for 1. It was previously scheduled for 11. So they're moving that one down. That's probably just the scheduling thing. But yeah, you can't flex the games date wise. I mean, people, if you're traveling, I mean, and spoiler alert, like the players already have like their travel, like we can't be flexing days here. You can flex hours, you can't flex days.
I agree. Yeah. Times, fine. Days, no. I think you keep the schedule as is. But times, like, say if you want to say, oh, Battlehawks starts at 5, if you can. I don't know what, but there's also.
Yeah, you're dealing with it.
But you're talking about scheduling. Yeah. It's like, well, the TV network can't just suddenly be like, oh, yeah, we're playing this game back then. Like, unless it's delayed, unless there's a weather delay, then yes. But otherwise, no, you can't do that. That's not going to happen. These networks have things to do as well, not just accommodate the UFL. Sorry.
Well, remember, was it last season that they went to Saturday Night Live when the USFL game was on? Just like, or maybe it was the first one of the seasons.
It was on NBC. It was the first season. I remember.
We're going to SNL.
They just faded out of the Panthers game, and they're like, "We're on the SNL. See ya." It was like, okay, and that was the first time in decades that the TV network had done that.
Yeah. We're still getting a lot of people we're not flexing the games on that. I'm sorry. We're not flexing the dates for all that stuff. Let's get to these real quick. We get out here. Houston but made some noise here. Birmingham took care of business, but was this anything from the Roughnecks now, or just kind of the last ditch effort here at the end of the season?
Completely last ditch effort. Nolan Henderson played a lot better than I expected. I mean, he came trotting in, and I'm just like, really? We're doing this now? And I want to shout out a guy, Reed Sinnett. He was so complimentary of Henderson on the sideline. He really just advocated for him full throttle. He said, I really like this guy. I'm excited to see what he has a different skill set. He even admitted like he has a different skill set than me. He can do more running. Like, that's really cool for a guy to be that selfless to say, I want this guy to get playing time. I think that's incredibly selfless of Sinnett. I just really like Reed Sinnett, man. He may not be the best passer in the world, but I like him as a player a lot. I felt so bad when he got hurt last year with the Brahmas. I don't know if he would have been an ultimate difference maker with them, but I really thought that he could have helped them play better. And it's really great to see some of these guys just honestly can be good teammates. They can really just say, I want that guy to play as well. You're competitive. You want to play as well, but you are thankful to watch other guys play that are playing aside you in practice. It's really cool. Mark Thompson was very good. You have to admit, he was very, very good. He had some incredible plays here, especially for the Roughnecks and trying to keep them in this game. But look, the point here is what I'm going to make, and I say this every year in the NFL, where at some point during the season, I texted this to my friend, and I always say this, is give blank or so-and-so the damn MVP trophy. Give Adrian Martinez the damn MVP trophy. He is incredible. And he didn't even have that great of a game passing-wise. I think he's actually had better games. And he walks away with 5 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 3 through the air. This guy is incredible. He has had an insane 4-week run here. And really 5 out of the last 6 weeks. He's just been incredible. Completely changed this offense. Really just given them something that they've actually needed, because I think their defense has had lapses, especially. I wonder about Birmingham without someone like Scooby Wright, without an emotional leader like that. Where are we going forward with this? I know they have a really good defensive line. DeMarcus Gates comes in and finishes the game with a sack on Sinnett. It's really good to see their defensive line produce. I'm a little bit worried about, some of their communication on defense. Are they able to stop some of these teams? But Adrian Martinez, though, is just he's the straw that stirs the drink. He has been amazing this entire year, and it's really just fun to watch. It really is. It's genuinely fun to watch Adrian Martinez. I look forward to it every week.
Yeah, we had a comment here about Reed Sinet being the best Reed in the UFL community. There's not many Reeds, but we do tend to be nice. We do tend to be good. We do tend to be good, good sports. So, let's get to the last game here. We'll get out here at the top. We got Showboats, Panthers here. Panthers getting all this at home. Like I said, you have better crowd here at Ford Field. Thoughts on this one before we get out?
For Michigan, I think they found an answer in Bryce Perkins. I don't really care for Brian Lewerke. I didn't really care for EJ Perry, and I really didn't care for Danny Etling. But I like Bryce Perkins. I know he's not the most accurate thrower. He's thrown behind his receivers a couple of times. He even did that in this game. But I think he really supplies a real legit run pass dual threat option. I know our colleague Pat would disagree with that because he thinks that the world of guys like EJ Perry and Etling, but like I really like what Perkins offers, and I'd rather him just stay in this offense, especially if he's going to be alongside Matthew Colburn. Also, real shame, West Hill's obviously out for the remainder of the season. Terrible injury. I mean, non-contact knee injury there in the backfield on the conversion for the first touchdown. Real shame because he was playing absolutely spectacular this year, and him as a 1-2 punch with Colburn was great. That sucks for Michigan going forward. They got to just continue to lean on Colburn. But, I like I said, I like this Michigan team. They have an identity. I know what they're about. They need to continue running the ball. And I don't think they need to play by committee. I think they need to just stick with Perkins. I'm going to say it right now. I really do. I think Perkins and a healthy run game and a run pass option would be really good. And maybe an RPO. That would really just work. As far as the Memphis goes, yeah. I love – gosh, what was it? I think it was I hate to call him out, but James Larson was tweeting about how Josh Love was coming out here and was going to get revenge on his team against the Michigan Panthers, and I'm like, I don't think there's much of a storyline there. I don't think Josh Love is really going to do much here. Sorry, I really don't. I know he got replaced by EJ Perry, but obviously that ended up being the better move ultimately, and I think. Look, the Memphis just has no answers. They're done. They're shot. DeFilippo can stay, but this entire roster needs an overhaul. They needed a complete makeover.
Yeah, Philip here says, I heard Reed Sinet hates puppies. Wow, that's that's
Ooh, okay, well,
we don't need to be
all right, Philip.
Philip's just mad. His Roughnecks fell apart, and it's just he lost the team identity and lost everything else with that.
Tough beat, Philip.
Yeah, tough beat. We're gonna wind down here. Like I said, I think we added a couple. We're 10 subscribers away. Get us to 3,500. Get us to the championship game here. Become a member. Join the community. 99 cents. 99 cents a month. It'd be a good. Just help me out. Make me feel good about my life. Mariners just got out of the bases loaded. We'll see here. Feeling good, Andy. We'll get through it. Anything else from you? Anything else you want to chat? We will be in St. Louis, right, for the championship game here. Andy's going to be. You're going to be out of town, right? We'll figure out. Is that next week? We got to figure that out.
Yes. So I will be out of town leading up to the championship game that week of. But I make no mistake, I will be there in person in St. Louis. You best believe I'm there.
Yeah, it's going to be funny. I don't even know. We'll get to all that. I don't even know if we're going to have to have remote guests, because you're going to be there. I'm going to be there. Pat's going to be there. Anthony's going to be there. I don't know. We'll see, but it could be fun. I know Pat wants to host us. We'll figure out all that stuff. Otherwise, I've got a studio, or not a studio. Pat has a studio. I have the hotel. We can do it too. We'll figure that out. But big live show for all that stuff. Appreciate it. Like I said, we'll be big show Friday. Emery Hunt. I'm really curious to get his thoughts. So that'll be more football-y. I know last week was like the expansion and everything, but more football-y talk with Emery for all that stuff, and then obviously the CFL stuff. Andy, we're excited. CFL. It's almost June. We had CFL preseason today.
Oh my God. I'm already getting my notes ready for your CFL pregame shows. I'm really excited for the CFL. I already have that on tap. I know we haven't even finished the UFL season, but I'm ready. I really do miss the CFL. When it goes away, I know by the time it comes back around, I'm really, really ready for it to come back.
Yeah, guys, if you like these, if you like all the UFL stuff, that'll be starting up. It's real. Like if you're accustomed to this style of play, the quality, if you're cool with the spring league quality, I think you'll be fine with the CFL, right? Because you get all these people and it's not like if you're cool watching this, it's a really high brand of football. We'll be doing the Monday recaps. We'll normally do, I think we'll get Jason Hussey back on that. Evan, if Andy wants to partake in any of that stuff, we'll figure that out. But we'll do the Monday recaps for that and then a lot of CFL stuff as well. So like I said, subscribe if you're part of that. Andy, I appreciate it as always making time on a Monday here. We'll figure out what we're doing in your stead. And I appreciate everyone. Subscribe. We'll see you next week. Thanks.